Well, everybody, it is Big Daddy, and here we go with Big Daddy and Friends again. And, like I always tell everybody, I want to bring my friends who are in the game, people that live it, know it, understand it, can explain it. That's the one thing where I try to be different than everybody else. And you know what? We sit and we chat and we tell the stories behind the story. And that is fun, laughing, making fun of me making fun of the guest, and all these other things in between. But this next guest, I have to say, she elevated my status from a nobody to a somebody because she happened to do a feature on me on the Wall Street Journal before she became big time. So Aditi Kinkhabwala from
NFL.
Yep.
Getting there.
I worked on that for a long time.
You know what, but Big Daddy, we've been friends for a dozen years, and so for a dozen years, I've just been Aditi.
Your last name. I was like, last night I was going over it, and then today I'm like, I gotta get this right. But
it's so when someone's your friend, you don't necessarily use their last name, especially if they have a name like Aditi or a name like Big Daddy. So it's okay. We're good.
Well, you want to laugh. My workout partner is Indian. And when he said to me, this guy started me. His name is Hitesh.
Okay.
He started working out with me last August. Mm-hmm. And he's been with me since. And he's the reason that you see the newer me. I did the physical part, but he was the guy that dragged me to the gym and said, you got to come with me because you need to live and be healthy.
And he's a workout buddy or he's a trainer or?
No, he's a workout partner, buddy.
Okay.
But we call him Coach Hitesh.
Okay.
So, right. And everybody, I got people call him coach and this and that. It's hilarious. So one of the things that he said to me, he goes, hey, who are you interviewing today? And I said, a very good friend of mine. Her name's Aditi. And he goes, ask her how to say her name in Indian. And I go, what? I go, look, it's Aditi to me. If there's another way or whatever, I asked him to be here so he can ask you.
No, but you know what? This is actually, Big Daddy, it's really interesting because in America, we talk about people's accents, like somebody who's from the South or someone who's very obviously Jersey or whatever. We talk about these accents. But the truth is internationally, the way that people speak and the sounds that their tongues can make is really, truly different. That's why not every single alphabet has 26 letters. And so in India, even though there are a variety of languages in India, the language that my parents' family grew up speaking is Gujarati. And in Gujarati, there's not just a duh and a tuh, there's a the and a th. And so if you're Indian, you say Aditi. But if you are not Indian, then it's probably really hard for your tongue to make that the or that th sound. And so you just say Aditi. And what's really funny is that my son, Nico, who is, half Indian via me and half Eastern European mutt via his father, can say all of these proper Indian sounds, even though I never speak to him. I mean, I wish this is one of my major failings as a parent is that I don't speak to him in another language. But even without the training of speaking in another language, his tongue can make those sounds. And my husband, he just can't, no matter how hard he tries. But this is a very long way of saying my mom, whose name is Rita, of all things, was always okay with Aditi turned into Aditi because she knew that the sounds like duh and th sounds like ta, and Aditi is a lot easier on the tongue than Aditi. But my brother, whose name is Anand, Anand, when he used to be called things like Anand, it would make her crazy. She's like, what's wrong with Anand? Why can't you say Anand? Go ahead, Big Daddy. Can you say Anand?
Anand.
There you go. See? There's no different sound. So she would have a problem with someone not pronouncing his name properly because the sounds are all transferable. But my sounds, I guess, are not. But, that was I feel like that's such a boring way to start this conversation.
No, not at all.
Cut that out and go back. Okay, we want to talk about names.
Right.
Let's talk about the whole reason I ever wrote a story on you was I kept seeing this enormous man around the Giants facility, at Giants games, on the road. And I kept being like, who is that? Who is that? And the answer would be Big Daddy, Big Daddy. And I really didn't think that somebody's name was Big Daddy. I mean, I think it took a good few months for someone to finally say Rich to me, by the way.
Well, listen, to get back to what we were just talking about, I have enough problem speaking normal English or proper English. I get corrected all the time. The famous word that I use that I get yelled at all the time about is alls, A-L-L-S. All's you, all's that, all's, and they're like,
that's not a word, Big Daddy.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. And I was told, you got to practice not using that word. So sometimes I'll start to say it and I catch myself. So I'm getting better at it, but obviously I know I need to eliminate that word. But, I feel
like you've gotten far enough using it. So if it's part of your personality and your charm, then there you go, right?
Wow. I can't wait to air this segment.
I'll sign that off on that one.
The writer, the reporter just gave me the okay. All right.
I'm just saying, Big Dad, don't write it in a story in the Wall Street Journal. But if you want to use it as lingo in conversation amongst friends, what's the big deal?
Yeah, listen, I agree with you, but there's smarter people out there that are always giving me education lessons, so I'll let them be nameless. I won't point them.
Isn't that people though? Aren't people always trying to tell us how we're wrong?
Yeah, I get told all the time. And I'm like, look, I'm just a simple insurance guy. Come on, give me a break. Yeah, I know I look like a security guy or an ex-football player, but this is me. I'm not, what you see is what you get. And I joke around. Me and Strahan always say to each other, Big Daddy, you ain't no oil painting. Remember that. And I'm like, I know. What you see is what you get, I don't try to be anything more than Big Daddy. That's it. But,
right.
I have to say that I'm so happy that we've been friends all these years. And to see you grow from where you were at to where you're at now, it's incredible. And I don't think I've ever told you that, so I will tell you that now, that this friend is very proud of you because you have grown leaps and bounds. You defy the stigma, because I actually learned about doing research, doing this kind of TV work and whatnot. So, I wrote myself some notes. And the one thing that I know you have to be proud of, and I'm proud of you too, is you're the first Indian American woman on TV in sports, no less. You get people that are talking sports and shouldn't be there, but you've always, you got it down. Like I mean, that has to make you feel like you're walking on clouds. And look, I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything. I'm happy. And I'm proud of you at the same time, and I'm always grateful for you and our friendship.
I appreciate that. But, it feels as if every conversation revolving ethnic background or race or whatever has become so fraught over the course of the last few years. And all I would say is that it's a part of who I am. Just like my having gone to Cornell, just like my being the mother of 2 children, just like my being the daughter of immigrants, just like my growing up in New Jersey, just like my being a tomboy, just like my love of the craft of writing. These are all parts of the whole. And I never wanted to be defined by or identified by any one of those things, other than perhaps she works really damn hard. Or she's really good.
She's a damn good reporter.
That's what I want. I don't want. So yes, to be fair, am I proud that I was able to pursue a path that not many people who come from a background like mine or look like me have had yet pursued? For sure. I think so much of that credit goes to my parents too, giving me the freedom to go chase something that they knew nothing about, that none of their friends knew anything about, where they didn't have any sort of example. If I said I want to go to med school, well, just about every Indian person they knew, including our whole family, was in med school. That wouldn't be so crazy. And here was this, okay, I'm going to go take this crazy leap, and we have no idea if there's any safety net. And you can't do that unless your parents give you the strength to believe you can do that. I think what's troubling is that I'm still the only one, and that it's still notable, and that it's still a part that comes up in conversation, that, instead of just, here's this tremendous reporter who gets at X, Y, and Z, or here's this person who went through this interesting career arc, that still is sort of a definable thing, that I was the first and am still the only Indian American woman on national sports television. No one wants to be the only. I'll just say that.
Well, maybe it's something where you start to mentor, put it out there.
I mean, I certainly do try. There's nothing, I think this about me, Big Daddy. I think I'm a crier, and I'm very, very emotional, and nothing gets me more emotional than the emails from Indian dads who tell me about their Indian daughters and how much they appreciate that their daughters, and even their sons too, I shouldn't say just daughters, but that their daughters and sons are seeing me go and do something that, again, is very untraditional for the Asian American diaspora, sort of, kind of, but okay.
but you know what? I could say this, and openly and honestly, you have relationships with people that I have. We have the same relationships, and I've never heard anyone say anything bad about you. And look, I would be the first one that if anything ever negative came out, I would say something to that person, and then I would give you the heads up. And I've never, in all these years, it's never, ever come up.
Well,
that's kudos to you. And you know why? Because people respect you, and you obviously have great contacts, and you tell it the way it is, and there's no BS. So that's a credit to you.
Big Daddy, if I knew that this was going to be an opportunity for you to stroke my ego, we would have made this happen a long time ago. I would have jumped on here forever. And also, another little side note, the reason you've never heard anything bad about me is because you've never talked to my mother-in-law.
Oh,
I'm sure she would have bad things to say.
Hey, listen, you know what? There's always, what is it? In a dozen eggs, sometimes you may have one bad one.
No. I'm just joking. I'm totally
No, look, I am too.
No, you know what, Big Daddy, I think it's the same exact thing that people taught. There are certain tenets that no matter what your business is or your industry is, that carry through. And you look at the way that you have been able to grow your company and what you do. And it's because at the end of the day, your integrity and your word matters so much to you. Yeah. And so I view it the exact same way. What do I have at the end of the day other than my integrity? Well, and so if that's what guides you, for you might score one great, huge, big deal. Yeah. But if you screw somebody else over it, then how good can you really feel about it? For me, if I step on my mother's back to break a news story, well, guess what? 3 minutes later, everybody's going to forget who had it first. So I think that we all have to make certain choices with what matters most to us and how do we want to use your word, grow. And I feel like journalism has certainly taken many, many, many twists and turns since you and I first met, like I said, more than a dozen years ago now, which is sort of crazy. I was 12 years old, I was just
I'm like, I got to get this girl back to homeroom before she gets yelled at.
Exactly. No, but yeah, I mean, it's just the world is different right now.
Yeah, it's well, obviously being affiliated with the right wing network, with the relationships I have there, it is always it's interesting to hear people's opinions and whatnot. I mean, the funniest thing that ever came out was I got coronavirus last year. And I think I got it when I left the combine. I came back and got sick. Well, I'm like, I'm not telling anybody. So I get a phone. I had to go to the hospital, so I check in, and I'm there for 3 days. My phone is on the floor. because it was on the table and it vibrated off the table. I was sleeping. So I'm like, what's my phone doing down there? And all of a sudden, I have 70-something text messages and like 35 missed phone calls.
Oh, gosh.
Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity decided to wish me well on national TV. Hey, Sean said to Tucker, hey, Tucker, we got to wish our boy Big Daddy get well soon because he's in the hospital with COVID-19. And I think he's got the virus. And I'm like, oh, I didn't win the lottery and I didn't want to say anything. So I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I had missed the show, but they replay it at like 1 a.m. So I'm like, I got to watch this. And I'm looking at it going, oh, Lord. So
you're laying in the hospital watching them talk about you.
Yeah. But, look, at the end of the day, when someone wishes you well, they mean good and they mean well by it. And I have no complaints. And I haven't seen Tucker in a while, but Sean is one of my dearest friends. We're close, and I go to him for advice, and he's helping me with TV stuff. So
and you clearly have a lot of friends who watch him as well.
Yes, and I do have a lot of friends that watch him as well. And it's funny, we get together quite a bit, and everybody's like, "Where are you guys meeting?" Like, it's like a conspiracy theory. Everybody wants to know where you guys are going out to eat or where you're meeting. Come on, you got to introduce me. And I'm like, dude, it's between him and between Stray and between this one and that one, everybody wants to meet everybody. And I'm like, go to Steiner Sports. You can pay them and they'll get you whatever you want. I'm not here to get you autographs and introductions. That's not my job. But anyway, so let's get back to you. Enough about me.
But I feel like the stories are so intertwined, aren't they?
Yes, they are. And you know what? When you talk about, being a minority and being this and doing whatnot, obviously a lot of people don't really know this, but I have a weird combination in regards to being my background, because my father was from Peru and my mom was from the Dominican Republic. So usually those relationships, they don't mix. And even the lingo or the dialect is one's to the left, the other's to the right. And I know this because when I went to Peru, everyone's like, "Where are you from? Like, are you Puerto Rican or Dominican? What a Cuban? What's your story?" And then I'm bigger than everybody else. My parents were both 5'7" and 5'8".
So where did this come from?
My mom's side, her brothers were all tall. My uncles were all tall.
So what's the story? How did they meet?
From what I heard, my dad met my mom in a restaurant. And
in New York?
In New York, and off they went, So
they had both already immigrated here separately.
Yep. And my mom left the Dominican at 16.
Oh, wow. Okay. By herself or with her parents?
By herself. And I'll share this with you. Her father was well-to-do, very wealthy. He was a grain manufacturer.
Okay.
So corn and flour and all this stuff. I remember when I was a kid, you're like, stay out of there, because you're running around a warehouse trying to see, and there's chickens running around, all this other crap. And, being from New York, you don't see that in your backyard.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, wow, this is cool. But, so my mom, even though she was one of, I think 12, she went for greener, better pastures and was more independent than the rest of them. And she came to New York, and then my dad, he did the same thing, and they met, and here I am.
And how is your mother's Dominican family about her marrying a Peruvian, and how is your father's Peruvian family about him hooking up with a Dominican woman?
Well, they're both looking down at me going, "You better answer this right." So I'm gonna give you the real deal. It was kind of my father's mother, who was she was my mom. I mean, I loved my grandmother.
Okay.
She would say to me, I want you to be very careful and don't make the mistake your father made. And I said, whoa, I know where this is going. And she said, you got to find yourself a nice American woman, and and without pointing the finger. my mother. And I'm just like, okay, Grandma. I go, listen, I got it. I got your point. And my mom's family, we were not very connected because we're all in the Dominican. The only siblings that she had, that we had 3 uncles, and they were all stateside, but everybody else was in the Dominican.
Okay.
And but that never kind of came up. And I always tried to be politically correct. I wasn't the apple of my father's eye. I was kind of a wise ass growing up, and my grandmother was the in between. What do I want to say? She was the judge. You have a fight between 2 boxers, and then you have the judge. Right. That was her.
Wait, so who was the favorite then? I know 2 of your brothers. How many of you are there?
My brother Louis, and my brother Jimmy, who coaches with the Bills.
Bills, right.
So, and he said hello, by the way. So, yeah, he was here last week. We had our Big Daddy Youth Football Camp, and he runs it. And then, like, he came down to my office, and he saw I had your name, and he's like, "Oh, how's she doing?" I go, "Well, they're going to have her on the show." And he goes, "Oh, tell her I said, what's up?"
I told you the story of how I found out he was your brother, right?
Yeah, yep. When you were
like you.
What's that?
He looks like you. I was doing the sideline for the East-West Shrine game, and he was coaching, and I'm staring at him the whole time, like, why do I look like I know this guy? Why do I think I know him? What is going on? And I don't even know if I saw his name before I said to him, you look so familiar to me. You look like someone I know. And it turned out it was your brother.
He's better looking and in better shape. But
no, I mean, those are some strong genes there. The 3 brothers definitely look enough alike. I mean, it wouldn't be hard to pick you out.
You could not figure out that we were related.
Okay, so was Jimmy the favorite or was Lou the favorite?
Louis was my dad's favorite.
Okay.
Jimmy was I used to be my grandmother's favorite when I was youngest.
Uh-huh.
And Jimmy took my spot. So there was nothing that kid could have done that was wrong. My grandmother battled for him, and I fell out of that whole loop. And, my mom, I was very close with my mom. So I would say, I don't know if I was her favorite, but my mom and I had a special relationship, and she was great and very supportive and, understanding.
Right.
Because she had to put up with a lot with me. But, I was always the one that was out there and doing everything that you shouldn't have been doing as a kid, because I just was me, I was like,
so let's go backwards for a minute. I know that you are, or at least when I knew you, you were a huge Giants fan, and you're right there. But if Jimmy is still with the Bills, coaching the Bills, I mean, are they your team now, or are you still root for the Giants? And
well, remember, one's in the AFC and the other's in the NFC.
I mean, sure.
So I still, obviously not being able to go to any games last year was brutal, but the year before I went up to see Jimmy. I went up to Buffalo twice. I saw them play New England in New England. I still catch my Giants games, here and there.
I know you can root for both, but on a Sunday, if they're both playing at 1:00, which one are you watching?
It depends. I'm usually at one game or another, so if this year I learned to use Red Zone. You're at home.
It took you this long to learn how to use Red Zone.
I never used. Well, think about it. I was at games all the time.
Yeah, true. Okay, fair.
I'd be the only fool that would have NFL ticket and probably use it twice,
right?
Or once the whole year. And I'm like, why am I spending all this money on this? And I go to games. I'm on the game field. I'm in the locker room, and I'm still spending $400 to have an NFL ticket. I might as well just rent out my living room and let someone that doesn't have it, and I'll leave the food. Help yourself. But it's that's they came one game away from going to the Super Bowl last year, and obviously I would have loved that to have happened for my brother, because it's all these guys always say is they and I just use alls.
I heard it.
Yeah, and because you and I are talking, so but I'll get reprimanded later. I
But
promise.
I already signed off on it, and I
Yeah,
said
I
I
know.
wasn't going to highlight it or nitpick on it. So
Nope, nope, I got it. So, but it would have been great for him to win it. At least gotten to the game, and because that would have been such a moment. And I've been to so many Super Bowls, but because of clients. But to have your kid brother coach in the game, that's hopefully next year that happens, or one day in his career it happens. But regardless, we're as a family, we're so proud of him because he's climbed the ladder. He's done everything correctly, and he's looked upon by a lot of people. And it's catching. That his name's
right.
out there. He's interviewed a couple places, and I'll tell you, the he caught a lot of flack last year because when Fox was doing the Thursday night things, the guys were going in there and then they would talk about the games and whatnot.
Right.
And who was it? Was Peter? I'm drawing a blank on his last name. He's going to shoot me. But one of the guys at Fox said, "Yeah, the Bills have turned around. Sean McDermott, Leslie Frazier, and Jim Salgado." And they were interviewing one of the DBs.
Uh-huh.
So they brought up my brother's name, and all of a sudden, my brother, it's at 7:00. It's the Good Morning Football show,
Right.
on your network.
Yes, of course.
So my brother texts me at like 7:30 in the morning. He's like, "Dude, I'm catching all sorts of hell." And I go, "Why?" He goes, "They taped the show and they played it through the building."
Oh my God.
So everyone's like teasing over, going, "Look at you, big time!" And what did you pay somebody to do that? I mean, like they were just. And my brother's so not like me, where I would have taken it to the extreme and had fun with it. My brother was kind of like, "Oh man, like I'm trying to be low key," and
Right.
But it was hilarious.
They're fun. You know what? I will tell you this: Brandon Beane, the general manager, and Sean McDermott are just really, really, really good guys.
Yeah.
So you can see them having fun with that. And I'll say number two, they're not done. That's a team that's only getting better. You like what they've done. You like the way they're growing. They're still young. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with Josh Allen's contract.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I know that. And I was, my brother was telling me that, look, they didn't have a pass rusher. They got one this year.
Right.
Kid from Miami. And, he took the year off, so he's healthy. So we'll see what happens there. And, my brother's fortunate. He's got some studs back there he's coaching. And he loves Micah Hyde. That's his guy. He loves all of them. But when I brought up Micah Hyde's name to him, he was like a book.
Are you supposed to be sharing this, or was this an off-the-record conversation? Is he getting all upset now?
Yeah, listen, my show is open. Whatever comes out, comes out.
Great. Okay, so good thing to know that we are not in a protected space right here.
Yeah, no, I'm not, but I'm not here to search for answers or point bad things out. I'm here to laugh like we're laughing and share.
No, I just always feel like a coach publicly always treats his players like a mother does. You can't ask me which kid I like the most, You're not supposed to publicly say, I love this one, not so much that one.
Yeah, well, that's why I said he does love all his guys. I mean, all's again, but he loves all of his players. And,
right.
And he talks about it so proudly, and when they make a play or they do this, or even a simple thing like bringing coffee, or whatever, and it's great to watch, and it's great to learn, and it's obviously I know the game from one way, but now I've come full circle because
right.
You're now seeing this, learning that. And I've asked so many people for advice in regards to even when we started doing this, because I was like, all right, I'm doing this. This is different. This is not me going on at Fox and Friends and I'm part of a 3 or 4 man group. or when I'm at the Super Bowl running around doing interviews. This is more, wow, it's one-on-one.
Right.
It's, you got to speak proper English. Look, I don't have the look, this. And it's kind of hilarious. But you know what? At the end of the day, listen, you are who you are. And
Right.
and I always say, I'll be who I'm going to be. And what you see is what you get.
And that will always be enough. That's another thing. The same way we were talking about integrity, I think authenticity is the thing that's most important. When I started in this, I didn't even know how to speak into a microphone. I was a newspaper writer. I'd never been in front of a camera. I don't even know if I wore makeup before I was on TV. Not that I'm wearing any now, but anyway, that's a conversation for another day. Now, but I do now know how to put on false eyelashes. There's an Ivy League degree for you, and how to use a curling iron. But my point in saying all that, is that you couldn't, when you start, I would sit here and say, oh, wow, look at how Robin Roberts does that. And, oh, look at how Doris Burke does that. And it was finally realizing I can't be somebody else. The only way that this is going to work is if I'm me. Yeah. And my personality is such that you should feel as if you're sitting at the bar with me and we're talking about somebody's run defense. And this is how I would talk about it if we were hanging out. And so that's my best way to convey it. Doesn't work for everybody. Other ways haven't worked for me. I just have to be who I am, which I think is why this has worked so gloriously well for you.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm fortunate because of the relationships I have,
Right.
And I always tell, someone said to me just recently, how do you manage all these relationships? And I said, by just being me, really. Just, look, if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. If I can't do something, I'll say I can't do it. Or, you know what, I may not know that person, but let me find somebody who knows them. And then at least I can go to them and they can route me that way. And then,
well, you just did that with us. You said somebody asked for my number and you helped connect me with somebody else. And so what do you lose by asking and saying, hey, I can maybe help? And maybe then that turns into something else for you in the future. Maybe it doesn't, but either way, it's good karma.
Yeah. So exactly. And it was funny. I was trying to find this, but I remember the gift that you and Bill Shine had given me, that cartoon picture of my head that was in the newspaper. And I'm like, I got to have it somewhere.
I would have thought that would have been framed.
I have it framed.
What is this Brady jersey there? Instead of a Brady jersey, you don't have my autographed article from the Wall Street Journal on Big Daddy framed?
I do have it up. It's, ready?
No way.
It's right there. Hold on. I'm going to pull it off the wall.
Get out. Look at that.
There you go.
Let's get closer so we can see the byline. See, we started on page 1 by Aditi Kinkhabwala, and then we jumped. That's a pretty big jump. Those are some fancy photos right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do look like a totally different guy, don't you think?
Yeah, I definitely, and I feel it. So see, I have you close.
I know, seriously, and I thought I was going to win a point right there, but I guess not. My goodness.
I had that thing framed as soon as,
as soon as it happened.
As soon as it was out there, I had it framed. So
beautiful.
That was, I cherished that article, and again, thank you. And that was a thing that opened up a lot of eyes because, a lot of people knew who I was, but, that just brought it to a whole different other level to be in a publication that's seen around the whole world. I mean, Aditi made Big Daddy famous. So, thank you.
I don't know that I could make you anything, but maybe there was, a few people who didn't already know you knew a little bit more about you, or we added some depth to what people did know at the time, right?
Yeah.
I actually, before Michael Strahan was selected as the guy to replace Regis, I did a huge piece on him in the Wall Street Journal. And it was all about how he could be the first huge crossover star, the guy that, was a superstar on the NFL field and could be a superstar in the media. And I remember calling Gelman, the producer of Regis and I guess it was Kelly at the time, Regis and Kelly, and trying to get some insight and, okay, well, how much of a finalist is he and blah, blah, blah. And then he turned and asked me, he's like, why are you writing about him? Well, what do you think about him? And I just remember thinking, if I write a piece and that helps him get this job, that's gotta net me something. And Big Daddy 12 years later, it's got me nothing other than myself feeling like, well, at least I predicted it. At least
I will remind him that you had a big stake in the whole thing.
Well, no, you want to hear what the craziest part of that is okay, so Michael Strahan and I met at like a hotel bar in New York, I think, to chat. Just like informally, we picked a place and we're talking, or no. I don't think we had started talking. We meet and then we're trying to find like a quiet corner to talk in. And all of a sudden this like diminutive, good looking guy goes, oh, hey, how are you? And he sticks his hand out to Mike Strahan and, they shake hands. And then he looks at me and he goes, hi, I'm George. And I say, I'm Aditi. It's very nice to meet you, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, that's George Clooney. And I'm looking at Strahan and Strahan's looking at me and we walk away. And I said, do you know him? He said, never met the guy before in my life.
That is hilarious.
And it was just the nicest, like Clooney saw Strahan and of course everybody recognizes Strahan. So he says hi to him. He couldn't have been nicer to me. We all acted like we knew each other. We talked shot the breeze, I guess. Circulated for a few minutes. And then I just will never forget Michael Strahan being like, never met the guy before.
I got caught up in that whole mix because Mike Florio from before he went to NBC, he had that site, Pro Football Talk,
right?
And he was putting out there, and then well, if anybody would know, Big Daddy would definitely know what's going on, blah blah. And I'm like, oh my God, please, I don't know a thing. I hope he gets it. I'm his biggest cheerleader. Obviously, he's one of my closest friends, and it was kind of funny going through that whole thing, and I was like, man. Finally, when they announced it, I think I was more relieved than he was because everybody, the two times that I caught the most flack in having a relationship with him as a friend was when he held out and when he was getting that gig. I got killed. That whole, where is he hiding? And no, he was holding out. I mean, I knew where he was the whole time, but that's not.
It's really funny that you talk about when he held out because my first son, my older child, Nico, when he was due in July and he was born in July. And everyone said, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I said to everybody, oh, it's my Michael Strahan preparation plan. I'll miss training camp and be ready for week 1 of the season. And that's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I called it.
And you did, because that's what he did. I mean, obviously he showed up the week of Dallas and, and then the rest was history. But that was
but it was a different time than now. Even now, I think about being in training camp, and the veterans don't do much of anything anyway at a lot of places. Certainly in Pittsburgh, I'm looking at Neil O'Donnell. Not that he played for Mike Tomlin, but Mike Tomlin takes care of his veterans in the most unbelievable of ways. And so, you're practicing every third day. You're going easy if you know what you're doing, and it's sort of you're not being killed. So then, how hard is it to really be out there and be a part of it?
Mike Tomlin is a great man, and I know Mike from when he was at William and Mary.
Get out. What's the story there?
Well, his brother was my teammate at Maryland.
Really?
So when you see Mike, you say, hey, I was talking to Big Daddy, and I'll tell you one time, funny story ever. The Giants play the Steelers in New York.
Okay.
And the Steelers win last minute in the game, and the Steelers are coming off the field, and, it was so Mike Tom was like, yeah, Big Daddy, yeah. And like, no, I'm going, oh my God. I felt like this little because there's like John Mara and everybody walking. And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, Big Daddy, give me 5. And I'm like,
gosh.
Oh my God. I mean, yeah, Mike, it's great to see him. Congratulations. But
I can't tell you how many press boxes I have sat in with John Mara where Mr. Mara is going or pacing or pounding. I mean, the emotional the connection of it all. And then what was great is when Tom Coughlin, who of course was the coach of the Giants and still one of my all-time favorite people in football ever that I've ever dealt with, that he was the coach when I was covering the Giants. He had moved up to that sort of executive role with the Jaguars, and the Jaguars came to play the Steelers. Was it the playoff game that they won? I think it was the playoff game that they won. And he was even worse in the press box listening to him and how bad he was. There's a reason that they put general managers and owners in boxes so that because it really is a whole, it could be a whole exercise, a whole show just in watching other people react.
I've been up in the box when I've sat, and I've sat with Steve Tisch in his suite a couple times. And, I've sat in the regular press box where, John Mara is walking around and I'm like afraid to even look at him. You know? And because, he's like boiling. But I'll tell you, in 2007, when they won the Super Bowl, that was such a great ride. And, I went to every game home and away. I'm in the locker room when they won in Green Bay. I did all that. But I'll never forget the week of the day of the Super Bowl when they played New England. I was fortunate enough to be in the owners section of the tailgate.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And, I'm not supposed to be in there, but I'm in there. And John Mara came running over to me and he said, "Oh, my God, Big Daddy, there you are." Because we used to have a ritual that we would shake hands before kickoff every game.
Oh, my gosh.
And obviously the Super Bowl, since I'm not on the field, that doesn't happen. But
right.
And I said to Mr. Meyer, I said, "You know what? You're like me. I'm superstitious too." So it was funny. We shook hands and, "All right, go get him." And then afterwards on the field afterwards, and everyone's going crazy. He just said to me, he goes, Big Daddy. And he never called me Big Daddy. That was the first time ever he had called me Big Daddy.
Oh, that's too funny. Wait, so was this the Indy Super Bowl? Was this the first New England or the second?
Phoenix.
Oh, so this is the one the undefeated season.
Yeah, when they beat the 18-1 to make them 18-1. But I'll tell you, in Indy, he said to me, remember, I don't know if you remember, I brought all the pizza to Indianapolis. Yeah. And we wanted to keep the tradition going. And he saw me and he goes, "Big Daddy, now I've really," he goes, "You're crazy." And I said,
it took him that long to realize it?
And I wanted to say that, but I was like, "Hi, Mr. Mara." That's all I said.
Right.
Because everybody's like, "Big Daddy, get the pizza over here," blah, 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 blah. And whatever. We went through that. Then afterwards, when they won, and I saw him on the podium, and he walked down to me, and he just said to me, he goes, "Big Daddy, thanks." And I never, ever forgot that, because he said that. For him to say that, they just won the Super Bowl. He's the owner of the team. Right. But he knows, like, I went through the thick and thin, obviously, of going through this, through that. I remember in 2008, I had an aneurysm and people were freaking out. And, I showed up in Pittsburgh when they played the Steelers in Pittsburgh. And everybody's like, "What the?" And he even said, he goes, "What the hell are you doing here?" And I was wearing a ski cap. You could, because I had, my scar was too big and ugly. Right. But that I'll never. Those are great memories that I'll never forget. But,
those families were just they are great families, and they're great people to be my introduction to the NFL coverage world, both the Maras and the Tisches.
Yeah, unbelievable. And I've done some incredible things.
And now I live here in Pittsburgh, and the Steelers have the Rooneys, who also you would say the same things about. And it's just, I think there's something to really be said for these families that have been invested in and part of the league for such a long time, and how much it means to them. And it's not just a piece of business, really.
Well, now we're going to have the fun part.
Oh, okay.
So you get to take the mic from me and go back to interviewing me again. Well, you get to ask me a question. But the only question you're not allowed to ask, and you're going to laugh, is how I got the nickname Big Daddy, because the first 10 shows that I did, all 10 people, how did you get the nickname Big Daddy? How'd you get the nickname Big Daddy? And so the producers of the show said, that has to be eliminated.
Well, I feel like we already talked about this once when we went out to eat with the Sindriches. So I think we're over that one.
I think we did. Yeah, we covered that. That's right. I have to get Ralph on here too, because
or it might be in the story somewhere. Frankly, I think it's in that Wall Street Journal story.
Maybe I don't recall, but
I won't waste it on that one.
Yeah,
okay.
I get reprimanded all the time. So, and then I'll share something with you that you don't know about me anyway. But go right ahead.
All right. Of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clients that you have worked with and helped over the years, who is the one that you believe you have had the greatest influence and impact on? And who, number two, has been the biggest pain in the ass?
Whew. I think I don't have one client that I've can say I've had the biggest impact on. I think that all the clients look at you as someone that cares about them, protects them, and has their back. And I know this is that the people that I work with realize that I've been in the trenches like they have, at a different level. And the experience, I mean, I'm going on 30 years in this business. And, can I get the commissioner on his cell phone? Yes. Can I get this guy on his cell phone? My business grew from players to coaches to general managers, and the business is always growing. So I think to answer that politically correct, see, I learned a little bit.
No, but I feel like this is a filibuster. There's just got to be one person that you hold especially proudly. Like this guy came to me and he had 18 people hanging on him wanting something of him, or this guy never even understood he had to insure his house, or this guy, I met as a 17-year-old kid. And
yeah, well, I'll be honest with you, and you're not going to be surprised. I'm going to say Michael Strahan. And the reason why, there's two people. Ronnie Lott was the first guy that gave me an opportunity.
Okay.
And here I was, I'm fresh in the business, and Ronnie had just signed with the Jets. And not only did he give me an opportunity to do something with him, I also learned from him. I could tell you stories, and we shared them. If you go on Big Daddy and Friends on YouTube, watch that interview. You'll have a laugh, because I traveled with him. I drove him. I mean, it was on the field training. Mm-hmm. As I'm driving, I'm learning and watching, and that was when the old Motorola gray phones, remember those things that used to open? I never saw anyone have more batteries for a phone than Ronnie Lott. He had like 20 of them. And we drove one time in Kansas. We were in Kansas. We were driving from, we were at the Chiefs facility, and we were driving to University of Missouri for something. And that drive was like, he burned through 5 or 6 of those batteries.
That's insane.
Go to the meeting, and then he tells me, he goes, and here's the funny part, he goes, Big Daddy, you got to get me to the airport, and I can't miss this flight. I have a meeting with Gene Upshaw, and da-da-da-da-da-da. So he goes, whatever we got to do to get there on time, let's do it. So we're in this rent-a-car, and I'm telling you, Aditi, I was doing about 100 miles an hour, flashing people, get out of the way, get out. And I said, Ronnie, if we get pulled over, we're probably going to miss your flight. And he goes, don't worry. If we get pulled over, let them take you to jail. I'll get the guy to get me to the airport, and then whatever it costs, and we'll square up or whatever.
Oh man.
I'm like, okay, boss. So I'm flying like a maniac, and it was before 9/11, so there was no it wasn't as strict.
Right.
I drop him off at front of his terminal. He runs through, and he catches his flight. Now I have a flight, and I have a rental car, so I'm like, what am I going to do? I go, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull up to the my terminal, and I see the baggage handler. I go, here, boy. I go, here, come here, bud. Come here. And the guy's like, "You got bags?" I go, No. Here's $40. Bring this car back for me." And they could mail me the receipt. So and I never had done that before, but
Right.
I got an education because Ronnie filled me in on what I needed to do to not miss my flight and get him as well to his. So, but yeah, I would say Ronnie, and then Michael's a guy that we were friends first before we did business together, and then it's like anybody else. You have to gain someone's trust and respect, and also they have to know that you know what you're doing. So that's the answer part one of your question. Part two, I've never had a client that's really been a pain in the ass, to be totally honest with you, because my business is more of you're giving the client a service and a product, not like you're handling their money or you're their agent or, so it's totally different. So I can't say I really had a client that's been a pain in the ass. I've had clients that going through the insurance part of it, when you have to take an exam and whatnot, are pains in the asses. But that, I had a guy, and I won't name who he was, that was crying because the examiner and him were trying to connect. And I had told him, I said, drink a lot of water. So when they come to take a urine sample, you go. He was holding it in for an hour.
Oh, God.
So finally I said to him, dude, wherever you're at, is there like a plastic cup or a cup? Just go in the cup and then give it to the examiner. And when I tell you that they were crying, I was holding my laughing because I had never experienced anything like that.
That is really funny.
But so that's it in a nutshell.
Awesome.
So,
Big Daddy, I have to say thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun to get to reconnect again like this, and let's do it again soon. If not on camera, at least just make sure we keep talking.
Yes, we will. And I was so delighted when you said yes and you were coming on, because obviously our relationship, and you were a groundbreaker for me. And for yourself, because look where you're at. And again,
well, it feels like I'm pale in comparison when your name drops.
Look, you deserve that. And I don't care what you say to me, because you do deserve it. And I'm very proud of you, my friend. So keep doing what you're doing. And we will talk soon. But I want you to give the listeners and the viewers where they could find you on social media.
Sure. Twitter is at A Kinkhabwala. That is AKINKHABWALA. I did not make that. I mean, it is my name, but someone else made it my Twitter handle, and here it is all these years later. And my Instagram is at Aditi NFL, ADITINFL. And come along for the ride. We have fun on both of those places, I would say. And Big Daddy, I hope to see you in Pittsburgh, where since we can't get a beer together, we can go for a long walk together, or a hike, or do push-ups or burpees or whatever it is.
I could do it now. Back in the day, I couldn't. I'd be like, let's go to Permanis. That's about as exciting as I'm
right? Well, I feel like the last time we got together, we had this massive brunch, this fancy brunch, and ate a lot and probably drank mimosas and the whole spiel.
I do remember that.
We'll just have to do it differently.
We'll have to do it differently and be smart about it. And, of course, we have to have Ralph and Mary there, because they actually sent me a note saying, hey, you better let us know when you're in Pittsburgh, because we'll be back. And I'm like, really? All I see is pictures of you on the beach in Malibu.
Yeah, right?
I'm like living the lifestyle of rich and famous.
To be them, seriously.
It's again, Aditi, thank you. I love you. You're the best. And to all the fans out there, make sure you keep an eye on Aditi, because she is just climbing mountains and telling it the way it is and giving you the real deal. Remember,
Big Daddy.
Remember, you heard that here on Big Daddy and Friends. So till next time. We'll see everybody real soon. And again, make sure you check us out. We'll talk soon.